All right, so for this game, this one's a bit of a different kind of game. So what's happening here is apparently what we have to figure out is what this team is doing during a bunch of months. So we have 9 months from March to November, and during these 9 months, essentially 3 of them are going to be spent in one mine, Grayson, 3 of them are going to be spent in a different mine, Krona, and then the remaining 3 months are going to be spent at headquarters. So essentially this is still at its core a sequencing game with just 3 elements, each of which will go exactly 3 times. Now the base setup essentially are those 9 sequential slots. Annoyingly enough, you don't get this very often, but there are 9 spaces here, and the 9 slots basically correspond to the months. So the months effectively, they start from March and they run through to November. For the record, if you were in a position of trying to remember what the exact sequence of the months is and thinking that this is kind of unreasonable, you're not the only one. But essentially, yeah, so we have March followed by April, followed by May, then we've got June, then July, August, September, October, and then we have November. So from there, the elements themselves, as we said, are just G, K, and H, and there's going to be 3 of each. So the rules. The first rule tells us that the team must work for at least 1 month at headquarters between any 2 months working at different mines, which basically means the mines, G and K, they can never be next to each other. That's really the only logical consequence. There always has to be an H in between them. So we can just simply kind of simplify that rule to say that G and K can never be consecutive in either direction. Next, we're told the team cannot work at the same mine for more than 2 months in a row. So essentially that means that G and K, you can't have more than 2 of them in a row, which means basically you just can't have 3. Basically, we can't have all 3 of G or all 3 of K in a straight sequence of 3. And that kind of raises the question also, could we have had an H go 3 times in a row? And the thing is, that wouldn't really work, because if we can't have G and K be consecutive, then if all of the H's are together, then all of the 3 H's are going to separate all of the G's and all of the K's, but then you'll end up with G or K going 3 times in a row. So that's not going to work. So we can basically say that what this rule means is that you can't have all 3 of a certain type sequentially. You can't have 3 G's, you can't have 3 K's, and in fact you can't have 3 H's sequentially. Next, the team must work in Grayson in August, so I guess we can line that up. That's pretty good to know. G definitely has to go into August, and we're told that K has to go for October. Now we can do a little bit of damage with this, because I mean, we just said we can't have G and K be right next to each other. So this can't be a G because it'd be next to K, can't be a K, can't because it'd be next to G. So this, they have to be basically separated, as we say, by headquarters. So that's kind of a good start. In fact, we can kind of start feeling our way out here, because let's talk about November. So November, arguably speaking, it definitely can't be a G. So the question is, could we have an H here? Because the thing is, if we were to place an H into November, it would almost be a waste, because we kind of need our H's to separate the G's and the K's. And if we just put it up against the edge here, we might not kind of be able to do that. In fact, we can kind of think that through. Hypothetically, let's just kind of play devil's advocate. If we had an H here, then that would be our second H. So what would happen on the other side? On the other side, let's say we put the G's consecutively. Let's say this was another G. We'll max out the number of G's that are next to each other. Well, then we would have to have another H in order to separate them. So we would have G, and this would be your third H, since, as we just said, hypothetically, this was your second H in November. So if we run G and then an H in June, well, the thing is, we still have to have the K's and one more G somewhere in these 3 positions. But then we can't make that work, because then there's no H to separate them. So that actually doesn't work. We can't really put an H into November, because if we do that, we won't have enough H's to separate the G's and the K's down here, which means this can't be a G either. This has to be another K. So that's a pretty good start. We have August through November already kind of figured out. I guess let's take a step further. July. Now, July, I mean, obviously we could do another G. There's no penalty for having G's in a row. But if we place a G here, then I guess we're going to be left with an H in this position. And then what are we left with? That would leave us with just one more K, because we need a third K aside from these two, and one more G. And I guess they would have to be separated by the remaining H here, so that would be fine. Now, could we place an H here? Because, I mean, again, is it premature? Because if we have a single G and we have an H, are we wasting the H? Well, if we have H in July, then arguably, actually that would work, because then we would have to have two more G's and one more K, and we would have one more H to separate them. So that seems like it could work. In fact, it might be a good idea to exhaust this based on that. So what we could do is we essentially have two possibilities for what could happen in July. We could either place another G here, or we can place an H here. Now, if this was G, then this is simple enough. We know that we can't have a third G in a row and can't have K next to the G's, so this will have to be headquarters. Now, we've taken care of two G's and two K's, so over here, we're still going to have one K and one G, and they'll have to be separated by H. So we'll have to have H basically in April, and then K and G will split March and May. Now, in this scenario, what do we still need to account for? We still have to have two more G's and one more K, and essentially the K and the G's will have to be separated. So effectively, I mean, we have four spaces that perfectly work out, right? So either we're going to have kind of the G's on one side, H and then K over here, or we're going to have G's on this side and then H and K over here. I guess what we can kind of do, just to kind of visually keep this in mind, is say that in these four positions over here, we're going to have a G-G block, we're going to have an H, and we're going to have a K, and obviously the H is going to separate those out, and then the G's and the K can kind of shuffle back and forth. We don't exactly know what's going to happen there, but basically these are going to be these four positions. So let's see what we can do with what we have. The thing is, we have actually a pretty good setup figured out, so we can probably just tackle these questions in order. Question number 13 says, what could be an acceptable setup of June through October? So here we're only going to be looking at effectively these 4 months, or rather 5 months over here. Now, we can start off with the easy stuff, because we know that these 3 months are locked down. GHK have to run August through October, so we can use that to disqualify a few answer choices. Answer choice A, and again, we said that's August through October. Answer choice A has GHK August through October. B does as well. Answer choice C has Corona in August, so that certainly wouldn't work. Answer choice D has GH and then G in October, and that doesn't work, so we can get rid of answer choice D. And answer choice E has GHK, so we're still good. Next, I guess from here, what else do we know? Now, July, we can actually say, we know that July is supposed to be G or H. You can't have a K there, right? So we can cross off anything that has a K in July. So answer choice A looks fine. Answer choice B looks okay as well. Answer choice E has K in July, which certainly wouldn't work, so that's out. That just leaves us with B and C. I guess let's take a look at, sorry, A and B rather. Let's take a look at these two. So for answer choice A, what do we have? Now you'll notice June, July, and August in a row are all G's, and that definitely doesn't work. We can't have 3 G's sequentially, so that actually would have gotten rid of answer choice A, and that leaves us with answer choice B as the best answer to question number 13. Next, number 14. Which of the following is a month in which the team must work at Corona? Now we know that consistently in both our exhaustive sets, both October and November are definitely K's, so we can look for that, and there it is. Best answer to number 14 is E. Next, number 15. Which of the following must be true? Let's take a look. A, Grayson in June? Well, no, because we could have had an H here. In fact, we could have also had a K in June as well, so that certainly doesn't have to be true. Answer choice A is out. Next, B, Grayson in July. And, well, we could, but we don't have to because it could be an H instead. Next, headquarters in June. Well, no, we could actually have the G's or the K there, so that certainly doesn't seem like it has to be true. Answer choice D, headquarters in September. And yes, you'll notice that in both of our exhaustive sets, September is headquarters. Best answer choice here is D for question number 15. Next, number 16. If Grayson is in May, so if we have a G in May, I guess the question is, what does that mean for us? Now, it's actually, I guess it's worth noting, that is entirely consistent with both scenarios, because it could work here, where G goes into May and then K goes over there. And in this scenario, you could have had G in May and June, and then H would have gone in April, and K would have gone in May. In fact, that seems to be true in both cases. So no matter what, if G goes into May, then H would have gone into April, and then March would have been K. So let's see what we can do with that. The question asks what could happen. G in March, well, no, in both scenarios, if the G goes into May, then K would have been in March. So answer choice A gets disqualified. Next, Grayson in April, and no, that definitely can't happen because that would have to be headquarters in both scenarios. Next, Grayson in June. Now that could have been true because if we have a G in May, then in the second scenario, this could have been a G in June. So C is arguably viable. Let's just take a quick look at the other ones. Krona in April, no, that would have had to be the headquarters. And Krona in June, no, no, if G is in May, there's no way to place a K in June because then G and K would have been next to each other. So best answer choice to number 16 becomes C. Onwards, number 17. If we have Grayson in July, so if G is in July, so it's worth noting that locks us into scenario 1 for sure, right? Because that's the only one where G happens to be in July. Let's take a look what could happen. Grayson in April, nope, that's definitely headquarters over here. Next, can we have Grayson in June? Nope, that's definitely headquarters as well. Can we have headquarters in May? Nope, that's one of K or G. Can we have Krona in March? Actually, maybe this is a KG split, so that could have gone either way. This could have been Krona. Just in case, can we have Krona in June? No, that's definitely headquarters. So best answer choice to question number 17 then becomes answer choice D.